I couldn't come here and preach about the power of self-empowerment and sovereignty and autonomy, the power of surrendering to your own divine truth. If I hadn't have gone through life and learned the wisdom and the lessons of a life in which I had to fight for my own expression and fight for my own truth and fight for my right to live from my own truth. And I certainly couldn't preach about the power that comes with embodying and surrendering to your own divine truth without having done that myself. If I was still living from somebody else's truth, then I couldn't be teaching about the power of living your own truth. It would be false. It would be a farce, because I would be not speaking from experience. I would be putting on some sort of mask of what I think that means based on what I still choose to believe and what was programmed into me. If I hadn't transcended any of this shit, none of it would work. It would all be bullshit. I wouldn't have fixed my life with it. There wouldn't be proof in the pudding if I hadn't have had that experience. So what you have to do is figure out what your purpose is, what your passion is. Look at your blueprint, which is, or map key, which is your birth chart, which is going to give you clues to what that is if you have no idea. That's what they say. Like, that's what we're doing here, right? You transcend your karma so then you can live out your dharma. Your dharma is that blueprint, is your purpose, is your passion. It's what you came here to do. Your karma is the lessons you had to learn to get you in the position to be able to embody your dharma. For instance, my dharma is to be an example of the transformative power of self-empowerment. And I couldn't have done that without transcending self-abandonment. Again, I couldn't come here to teach about the power of embodying your own truth and fully trust and surrendering in only what you know and believe to be true, and the power in that, without having done that. So from an objective point of view, if you are saying, okay, the next thing that I want to do to aid in this evolution is to be a teacher of self-empowerment, well, then you're going to have to, then you need to be like, okay, if that's what I want to do, then I'm going to have to go through the experience of transcending that, which means I'm going to have to choose a life in which I'll be forced to self-abandon in order to find my own truth, in order to fight for the path of finding my own truth. In order to teach about breaking free from other people's conditioning and oppression and suppression, you would have to live through the opposite of that. And you would have to have had the experience of transcending other people's conditioning, programming, beliefs, in order to truly know the power of embodying your own beliefs. That's what I was saying earlier. Your biggest pain point is going to lead you to your biggest power point. Now I know that the pain I had felt from years of self-abandonment was so that I can transmute that into self-empowerment. Why did I abandon myself? Because my I decided to buy into what my entire world was trying to tell me, which was you can't trust your authentic expression. You have to build this mask, and that's how you survive in this matrix. And the whole time I had an inner child and an inner being, an inner wisdom that said no, that was saying no, none of this. I don't believe any of this to be true. But then I let myself become my own abuser and shove myself in a box, basically succumb to the programming in order to try to be successful in the matrix. And it starts early because you just try to fit in as a child, and then you realize fitting in is not what I want to do. Then you're well on the path of realizing that sovereignty is what you want. And that leads to a lot of isolation. Already talked about this. Biggest pain point equals your biggest power. I couldn't know what it's like to show myself the unconditional love, trust, and support, and guidance, and liberation. I couldn't have known that feeling without having had and done the other side of the coin. I couldn't have that feeling of victory that my inner child got to experience when she finally was accepted by herself the way she wanted to be accepted by her world, her reality, and her birth parents. I couldn't have had that moment without having done the opposite. Couldn't have had that moment of victory of, I knew it was the way that I thought it was. I knew I was right and that I was just punishing myself and succumbing to the world around me. That moment of victory of, I knew it. I knew I should have just trusted myself. Couldn't have had that if I didn't force myself to not trust myself by listening to the world that was being projected around me. I couldn't then have this world reflect back to me this level of freedom if I hadn't of allowed myself to be chained in order to figure out how to free myself. And have the experience of, yes, I should have trusted myself all along. Couldn't have the experience of ultimate self-trust without the opposite. Couldn't have the bitch, I told you so moment without having succumbed to what those bitches were trying to tell me. I mean, being like, no, I don't believe this, but I guess I have to do it. To then transcend that and be like, bitch, I fucking told you it didn't have to be that way. Now look at you, you're still stuck, and you're still stuck, and I've transcended that shit. If I had to just listen to me all along. But I wouldn't have been able to have that great experience. If you're just free all along, then you don't have the experience of freedom, liberation. You couldn't have the experience of, yes, I brought myself here if you were raised in a way that led you to becoming that version of yourself easier, faster, sooner. The thing that you fantasize about, if I had have had the proper raising and had this information earlier, I could have been this version of myself earlier. No. Because then you would never know for sure why or how you trust yourself. You'd just be born. It would be somebody else's belief, right? That I got you, and this way you experienced it. It is your belief now. It's not somebody else's belief that was imparted onto you. You get to truly believe that now because you have had that experience. Not the experience of being raised with, you can do anything you want in this life and have that actually be reflected back to you and true. If you were taught that from the beginning, yes, it would be a belief that was instilled in you, and you would be in a different place and a different person. But you wouldn't have that belief of, it's my truth that brought me here. You would have, it's somebody else's truth that brought me here. You would always be, somebody else's guidance got me here, not your own. You couldn't have the experience of being self-made if you didn't make yourself. If you were given the tools to begin with, the way you fantasize about, you wouldn't be able to say you're self-made. You would say, I got here due to the help of others. Or not even help, or the way I was raised, right? If you're don't want the experience of being self-raised, then you wouldn't sign up for it. But anyway, you can't have the experience of being self-raised if you came into a world and were raised up and away by somebody else's beliefs. That'll still give you, maybe you're in like a similar position in the sense of, now I'm a self-assured individual, but maybe earlier on in life, but I'm self-assured because somebody else made me not that way, not because I went through the experience of making myself self-assured. And I know this experience to be true because I experienced it, not because it's somebody else's belief that was imparted on me. Then I don't get to have that experience of I built myself up this way. It was like I was raised to be this way. So evidently that's what I came for. Other people, maybe that's not their gig. But evidently that's what I came for, was to be completely and utterly self-made. Obviously with God, God is my co-creator. Not this big ego, I did it. I know it was a co-creation, but I didn't have anybody else's help but me and God. It was me and God, and that's it. And that's my ride or die bitch.